There are two types of people: those who have played Guitar Hero and those who haven't. I'm lucky, I've played Guitar Hero. And here's the miracle: thanks to a piece of plastic, I've become a world-famous rock star in a one-room apartment. That's why I decided to tell you how Guitar Hero was born, who came up with the idea, why nobody believed in it, and how did the first game change the industry. You're on Dragmatic. Please subscribe and smash the bell button, as we are about to begin. In 1995, Alex Rigopoulos and Aaron Agassi created a company named Harmonix Music System. Alex and Aaron weren't planning on making games. They wanted to create a technology that would help people make music. Any human being is born with a passion towards music, and sooner or later will try making it him or herself, for example, by learning how to play various musical instruments. But few people succeed. Some lack time, the others lack patience or perseverance. This is the kind of people Alex and Aaron wanted to help. In 1998, Harmonix released Axe, a program where you control music with a joystick or a mouse. To slow down or speed up a tune, you have to move the cursor left or right, and to change the tone, you have to move it up and down. Axe offers a choice of 12 songs and 8 instruments, including jazz, guitar, piano, and trumpet. The program allows to improvise, so you can't go wrong. No matter how you move the joystick, you get a unique melody. Axe proved to be an interesting technology, but it wasn't able to keep people engaged for more than 15 minutes. Harmonix sold only 300 copies of the program. Meanwhile, in Japan, first musical games were on the rise: Beatmania, Dance Dance Revolution, and Parappa the Reaper. Alex and Aaron understood that rhythm games allowed to make music unlike any other programs, so Harmonix opened its doors for game developers. One of the first to join the team was Greg Lopiccolo, a developer from Looking Glass Studio, famous for its Thief and System Shock. Before becoming a game developer, Greg used to play bass guitar in a rock band called Tribe. In the beginning of 1999, Greg's colleagues from Looking Glass joined him at Harmonix and the team got to work. During one of many brainstorms, Greg drew a three-dimensional model of a music track on the board, as if the player was literally driving through the tune like a tunnel. The colleagues appreciated the idea and started working on the prototype for the first game, Frequency. It was only released on PS2. While Harmonix was working on Frequency, on the other side of the US, brothers Charles and Kai Huan founded a company called Red Octane and started developing video games with specialized controllers like dance mats, pedals, and steering wheels. Such games were popular in Japan, but were still a niche in the United States. In 1998, Konami released the Dance Dance Revolution arcade machine. Its dancing platform copies the arrows that pop up on the screen. To earn points, the player has to dance on the same buttons as on the screen. Konami sold more than 10,000 machines and then released the game on PlayStation 1 with the original dance mat. The same year, Dance 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 Revolution arcade games appeared in the United States. The home version of the game wasn't released in the States until 2001, so to play the game on PlayStation, people had to get their hands on a pirated copy or borrow one. So the Huan brothers decided to sell their mats. The business skyrocketed. The company made money, covered previous expenses, and even achieved an enviable surplus. Later, the guys tried to sell Dance Dance Revolution in the US, but decided it was a better idea to make a game with some musical instruments. Charles and Kai liked the Japanese arcades Guitar Freaks, where you play a guitar and drum mania with drum cymbals. This is an important moment. The lads from Japan had thought of everything, but for Americans, the Japanese games lacked rock and roll, so a game that would give people that rebellious spirit had to be made. The team were thinking hard on the name of the future project. They knew that it had to have either guitar or drums in it. Other than that, nothing else came to mind. They were mostly thinking about the money. It seemed that it would cost millions of dollars to find a developer and make both the game and controllers for it. That kind of spending could easily ruin the company. But let's get back to Harmonix and their first music game, Frequency, that came out in 2001. Let me remind you, frequency presents a melody in the form of a three-dimensional tunnel with notes of different instruments on its edges. When the player moves the cursor over the notes, music is made. Harmonix couldn't get enough of the game. First, it hooked the testers, then the rest of the office. The first reviews of Frequency were positive, so Harmonix talked Sony into a TV commercial for the game. The developers hoped to make some decent money, but the game flopped. Sony marketers predicted such outcome as Frequency got the lowest absentee and highest in-person interest scores of all the games Sony tested. This means that none of the testers wanted to buy the game based on screenshots and descriptions, but everyone wanted to buy it after spending half an hour actually playing it. Then, Frequency had another problem that prevented it from becoming a hit: its graphics and design. Frequency surely wasn't a beautiful game and looked way too abstract. Harmonix soon changed their publisher to Konami and started working on Karaoke Revolution. It wasn't as exciting as the previous games, but it sold quite well, mainly because it didn't look like a psychedelic animated picture and, more importantly, made the player feel like a pop star because he associated himself with the avatar on stage, who received genuine ovations from the virtual audience.
Welcome to the world of iToy.
By the end of 2003, Sony had released the iToy camera for the PlayStation 2, which made possible motion capture games, and invited Harmonix to chip in, but without any musical quirks. Harmonix made Anti-Grav, a futuristic racing game where characters race on hoverboards and do dope stunts. The game sold 4 times better than its predecessors, and was the company's best commercial project in almost 10 years. But for the developers, it was the worst game in the studio's history because it had no music. The guys spend a lot of time thinking about the past and the future. Why did they decide to make music games? Are they really this undemanded? Should they try doing something else? Or make games for new technologies like iToy? In the tough and grim autumn of 2004, a beam of light shined upon the developers. Guys from Harmonix received a call from the guys from Red Octane. Red Octane was tired of dance mats and liked Guitar Freaks, while Harmonix had been planning a guitar game for years now and even came up with the name, Guitar Hero. One spark and storm of emotion later, Red Octane offered Harmonix to be the publisher of the future game, and despite the latter's obvious desire to agree, the two teams spent quite some time discussing all pros and cons. And here's why. Music games have never been that successful in the US, and the same goes for special controller games. Because of the controller, the game required a giant box, and stores hate it. Plus, the game would have more expenses. And finally, the game would be extremely hard to sell because the publisher had no capital, no connections, and no distribution channels. Long story short, it was the worst idea imaginable. On the other hand, the guys from Harmonix could finally make a great musical game they had had in mind for 10 years, so they agreed. But how do you make a guitar game? Perhaps it should be a guitar karaoke game like Karaoke Revolution. We know what it ended up as, but the guys at Harmonix didn't, so put yourself in their shoes and try developing an assumed Guitar Hero from scratch. A week later, this task was solved by a programmer named Dan Schmidt, who made the first prototype of the game. He took a plastic guitar, wrote a MIDI file for it, and launched lines of notes on the screen, each binded to a certain key. The prototype was played on a small 15-inch black and white TV in the office recreational zone, and it was something else. Everyone seemed to be sure that Guitar Hero would be a hit, but Harmonix founder Alex Rigopoulos said it would be great if Guitar Hero would sell at least 80,000 or 100,000 copies, which were the combined numbers of frequency and amplitude. The development was on the roll. Red Octane planned on releasing the game by 2005, New Year's holidays. Harmonix had about 9 months and a very modest budget of $2 million. Restrictions kept the developers on their toes. The team didn't get distracted by unnecessary details like multiplayer and worked strictly according to plan. On the other hand, Harmonix weren't developing Guitar Hero from scratch. They used the experience of previous games. In Guitar Hero, the developers combined the Frequency music engine and the Karaoke Revolution visuals. Same audience, same cameras, same character skeletons, but with different faces. The characters, by the way, were inspired by musicians from different years. The artist used existing establishments to create concert venues. One of the first levels in the game is a small rock club inspired by venues in New York and Boston. The final location is a giant stadium whose stage has a bad and a good side. The bad side has a dragon and the good has a lightning-wielding god. Depending on the performance of the player, the camera shows either the bad or the good side. The first Guitar Hero location is a home basement with scattered carpets, a buzzing washing machine, and walls covered with posters of different bands. Such decorations are surely familiar to many musicians. The distinctive feature of the game's visual style is its pseudo-mechism. As Harmonix art director Ryan Lesser said, if you imagine 80s heavy metal as a man, you get a dumb alpha male with a big heart. Put some face paint on him, make him wear a pair of skinny jeans, add some studs and piercings, and you get your own Tommy Lee from Motley Crue. It was an interesting time, everything seemed cool and grotesquely funny. To convey this type of mood in Guitar Hero, the developers made the characters and locations angular, disproportionate, and shabby. For example, the band's drummer is a big guy with noodly legs, and the bassist is a long thin fiddle with majestic hair. The game also doesn't have a single perfectly square object. One side of any contraption is always slightly bigger than the other. Every device, the speaker, the combo amplifier, the washing machine, is drawn so that it looks like it's about to flip over. The only exception were the guitars. Their peculiar shapes simply didn't need to be changed. The reference for Guitar Hero's own guitar was the controller for Guitar Freaks, but it looked too futuristic. Harmonix wanted to give its players the feeling that they were playing a real guitar, not a space one, so the design was copied from the Gibson SG electric guitar, and the 3 buttons from Guitar Freaks were complemented by 2 additional ones, so the player had to move his hand like a hardened guitarist. To keep players from having a tough time playing at the beginning of the game, the developers have sorted the songs by difficulty. The easiest ones are played in the basement, and the most complex ones are played in the stadium. Also, the game has overall difficulty levels easy, medium, hard, and expert. They determine whether the player presses 3 keys once every half a minute or doesn't let go of 5 keys the whole song. Then, the developers figured out that it would be neat to interact with the guitar in a mechanical way, like raising to the sky and yanking the fingerboard. So they came up with the idea that shaking the guitar would activate the star power adrenaline scale that doubles your points. However, to activate the scale, you first have to fill it a number of combos. You also don't have to necessarily shake the guitar. The scale can be activated with a special button, because at first, the developers didn't have a guitar with a motion sensor. The first guitar also didn't have a tremolo bar. Harmonix asked Red Octane to add one of the controller before even figuring out how it would work. Oddly enough, the bar works just like in real life. It changes the pitch of long notes. From a mechanical point of view, Guitar Hero turned out to be a really awesome game. The only thing to deal with the music. It's super costly to license original songs, so Harmonix used the covers of renowned pieces. But picking the songs themselves turned out to be quite a task. Ryan Lesser, the art director of the studio, was adamant that Guitar Hero should have Kiss, while the game's producer Daniel Sussman hated the band. Then, Harmonix argued with Red Octane about the best Blue Oyster Cult song. The publisher defended the band's most commercially successful song, Don't Fear the Reaper, while the developers voted for Godzilla because it better suited the gameplay. In short, the songs were the subject of long and heated discussions, but the developers had at least 2 reliable filters in their disposal. First, no all songs were to pass the low PG rating, as they had lots of swearing and obscene language in general. Secondly, not all the songs were interesting to play. Red Octane producer Lennon Lang would listen to each one at least 30 times, think about how it would be played on the controller, and filter out those which had long academic solos, even if otherwise they were a perfect fit for the game. Despite the agony of choice, the devs compilated quite a wide playlist and didn't forget about the lesser-known bands. Guitar Hero has a total of 476 tracks, 30 covers, and 17 original tunes from various Boston bands and harmonics themselves. To license the songs, the devs had to hold lengthy negotiations with the labels, who wouldn't give the music rights to an unknown publisher of an unknown game. The labels didn't get cocky, they just couldn't explain to the musicians what Guitar Hero was, because Red Octane had a screenshot of one of the characters with a description along the lines of "it's a musical rhythm game with a toy guitar that you push buttons on." Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and Metallica didn't even consider the offer. Ramones, Ozzy Osbourne, and David Bowie reluctantly agreed. Jimi Hendrix's family refused 5 times, but on the 6th time the developers finally managed to get the song Spanish Castle Magic. Sometimes, labels would give the rights for music of a certain band if Red Octane agreed to add another, smaller band of the same label to Guitar Hero. It was like content for promotion type of deal. In the end, Red Octane got the license for 30 covers, recorded by Wave Group Sound Music Company. It cost about $10,000 to record each tune. Nothing compared to the original licensed tracks of future Guitar Heroes. When Red Octane could no longer afford to pay for covers, the developers added songs of their own bands and little-known Boston collectives to the game. A total of 17 tunes that don't appear in the main campaign, but can be bought in the game's store for money the player earns through the store. No one thought about it at the time, but getting into Guitar Hero was a huge gift for any band, because thousands of people would hear about their music and later go to their concert or buy their album. The last stage of the music-related work was to put the songs into the game, break them down into notes, and bind notes with the buttons. To this end, Harmonix's lead audio designer Eric Brosius would first dissect the song second by second, then learn how to play it on a real guitar to then play it on the controller with similar movements. The game was tested by the whole office. People without musical talent would point out shortcomings, and experienced musicians would make corrections. To get the hang of the game, sound engineer Izzy Maxwell even played Guitar Hero with his other hand. He started out on easy difficulty, but quickly mastered the hard one. Lead designer Rob Kay fixed the game's another mistake. The developers often took the game home, and Rob offered it to his wife Rin. At first, she politely refused, but quickly got hooked and managed to beat the song "I Love Rock and Roll." When Rin saw that the game awarded her with 1 star out of 5, she got very upset. So Rob changed the minimum score from 1 to 3 stars out of 5. For people to become aware of the game, Guitar Hero had to find its way into the press. Red Octane senior brand manager Corey Fong bombarded the mailboxes of video game journals and begged them to try Guitar Hero. In May 2005, Harmonix and Red Octane showcased Guitar Hero at E3. The developers didn't speak from the stage, and the game didn't have a giant and fancy stand. The Guitar Hero tent was hidden deep inside the area. The game was being shown behind the curtain, but thanks to the word of mouth, soon there was a line at the Guitar Hero tent. And to the publisher's delight, it had some game journalists. The game received previews from IGN, GameSpot, and a bunch of other media. In October 2005, IGN released a video in which its editor-in-chief and his colleague were playing the shit out of Guitar Hero, seemingly having the time of their lives. The video did a better job than any commercial. But gathering the press is one thing, and negotiating with the stores about selling the game is another. Because of all the previously mentioned issues, only Best Buy didn't say no to the publisher. Since Guitar Hero was a game with an unusual controller, the network's top managers simply didn't have where to put it, the game section or the hardware one. While the managers were racking their brains, manager Casey Sondrill placed the game into the tech department. Casey agreed to take Guitar Hero when she and the other managers got the chance to play it. Even though she was having a hard time catching notes with the weird plastic guitar, the game won Casey over. Soon, under her supervision, Best Buy started placing demo stands. After Best Buy, Walmart and GameStop also got involved in the deal. This gave the game some good media coverage, great advertising, and shelves in stores. But there was no actual game, no discs, no guitars, and no big fancy boxes. Red Octane estimated that 100,000 copies of the game would suffice for the first time, but the publisher had no money because the manufacturers refused to give loans. Red Octane borrowed money and tried to attract investors, but they saw no prospects in it. To raise $3 million for the production of the game, Red Octane founder Charles Huang decided to mortgage his house. His wife wasn't exactly thrilled with the idea because the couple had 2 young daughters. When his wife asked him where the children would live if the game didn't sell, Charles gave a simple and sincere answer: "I'm sure it will sell." Charles's wife addressed the same question to Red Octane's vice president of marketing, Dean Koo, when he and the lads were packing up Guitar Hero in the office warehouse. Of course, he too replied that everything would be fine. Red Octane opened the warehouse in the office back when they were making dance mats for Dance Dance Revolution. Since the publisher didn't have a logistics company nor money, the employees had to pack Guitar Hero boxes with their own hands. A few dozen people for 100,000 boxes. The work was done in shifts, half a day in the office, half a day on the boxes. Unload the containers, open the boxes, reassemble them into other boxes, tape them up, and voila! At last, Guitar Hero was released on the 8th of November 2005 on PlayStation 2. Best Buy had planned to sell 30,000 copies of the game between November and January, but 3,000 copies sold out in the first 2 hours, and Best Buy manager Casey Sondrill asked for 8,000 more boxes the following week. Red Octane only managed to make 5,000 copies out of 8, but Best Buy got only half of them. The other 2,500 went to GameStop. Each week, the company produced $75,000 to $100,000 worth of Guitar Hero copies and shipped the game to stores, which returned the profits within 2 months. Each week, Red Octane closed the money gap with loans and money for the house Charles mortgaged. Every week, Charles filled out paperwork for 3 or 4 banks. Because Guitar Hero was in short supply, it seemed like a super popular game. Phones at GameStop were ringing off the hook from customers. Instead of hello, managers would pick up the phone with the words, "We don't have Guitar Hero." In 2 months, Guitar Hero earned $45 million. According to VG charts, the game's total circulation was 1.8 million copies. On Metacritic, the game had 91 points from the press and 85 points from the players. Sound engineer Izzy Maxwell forever remembered the letter that was sent to him by a fan of the game that had a photo in it where the fan was lying on a broken glass table with a bloody leg, clutching the guitar controller in his hands. The guy wrote that he jumped on the table while playing the game, that it broke and he hurt his leg badly with a shard of glass, but that he only went to the hospital after he finished the song. Guitarist Lance Tabor, who recorded the songs for Guitar Hero, would walk his dog every day past the gazebo that harbored all the skateboarders in his neighborhood. He said that they were talking only about the game. Art director Ryan Lesser realized that Guitar Hero had transcended the boundaries of a game when he saw a video by the band Switchfoot for the song Awakening, in which 2 men play cardboard Guitar Hero on cardboard guitars. Harmonix founder Alex Rigopoulos found hundreds of videos on YouTube where people played Guitar Hero, despite that in 2005 YouTube was a new thing. Harmonix co-founder Aaron Agassi noticed that the sales of Guitar Hero were doubling every month. Thus, the seemingly worst idea in the world to make a music game with a special controller in a big box for a high price became one of the major decisions in the life of Harmonix and Red Octane. Both companies made money and a name for themselves. Soon, the smell of young blood attracted old business sharks. A quick insight into the past. Harmonix, the developer studio, and Red Octane, the publisher, joined their efforts on Guitar Hero in the fall of 2004. According to the contract, after Guitar Hero, the team was to make 2 more games. They were Guitar Hero 2, which was released in 2006, and the expansion Guitar Hero Encore Rock the 80s, which was released in 2007. The releases coincided with some rough times and serious personal reshuffles. In spring 2006, Red Octane became part of Activision, and in fall of the same year, Harmonix was acquired by MTV Networks, a subsidiary of Viacom Media Company. Since Harmonix and Red Octane practically parted ways, Guitar Hero 2 was developed by Activision rather than by Red Octane. Harmonix didn't want to give up their work and came up with a new music game. Unlike Guitar Hero, it had drums, bass, and microphone in addition to the guitar. This game was released a year later and was called Rock Band. It's safe to say that Guitar Hero died as a phenomenon in 2006, but officially the series lived on for 9 more years. The main difference between the main parts is the number of songs and the songs themselves. So we won't be talking about the development of other parts as much as we did about the first one, because it is the same game. What's more interesting is what was going on inside the companies, who was responsible for Guitar Hero after Harmonix, and how the approach of the Activision Colossus was different from the approach of tiny Red Octane. The Huang brothers agreed to sell the company to Activision, not only because they were promised a lot of money, but also because Red Octane would not realize the full potential of future Guitar Heroes. In September 2005, Charles Huang mortgaged his house to pay for the game's production, and in May 2006, Activision bought his company for $100 million. When Activision bought Red Octane, it also got the rights for the franchise. The publisher wasn't interested in the idea of a musical game with multiple instruments. Activision wanted Guitar Hero to remain a guitar game. The publisher allowed Red Octane to finalize their contract with Harmonix, but didn't want to continue working with their new owner Viacom, most likely because the companies previously had litigations over the Star Trek franchise. Long story short, Activision bought the 10-year rights to the Star Trek franchise from Viacom, with the hope of releasing licensed games and making some good money, of course. But Viacom cancelled all further film adaptations, causing the popularity of the games to plummet. Activision filed a lawsuit against Viacom, but in 2005, the conflict was finally settled. But let's put the old banter aside and get back to Guitar Hero 2, which came out in November 2006 on PlayStation 2 and in April 2007 on Xbox 360. The PlayStation 2 version contains 40 cover songs by famous artists and 24 original bonus songs by little-known bands. The storyline features, for example, Alice in Chains, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Foo Fighters, Rage Against the Machines, and Nirvana. Bonus songs, as in the original Guitar Hero, are available in the game's store for coins that can be earned in the main campaign. The Xbox 360 version of Guitar Hero 2 contains the same songs as the PlayStation, but with 2 changes. First, it contains the original licensed tracks by My Chemical Romance, Primus, Jane's Addiction, and Toadies. Secondly, thanks to Xbox Live, players could add 24 more songs to the game, including songs by such bands as Atreyu, Bad Religion, and Trivium. All the song bundles came out before the end of 2007. They were removed from Xbox Live in 2014. The plot of Guitar Hero 2 repeats the story of the original. The protagonist and his band become rock stars. At first, the guys play in the school hall, then they perform in some crummy clubs, and at the end, they give a mind-blowing concert, not even at a stadium, but at Stonehenge. In the second game, the developers added a decent competitive mode, where each player can earn points for himself. In the original Guitar Hero, there was only a cooperative mode with 1 point counter for both players. Another important innovation is the introduction of the bass guitar. It's not a separate controller, but a new role to play in co-op. You can play 2 basses, you can play 2 lead guitars, but it's more interesting when one is on bass and the other is on solo. There are all the innovations of Guitar Hero 2. By the end of 2006, that is, in 2 months, Guitar Hero 2 had earned $200 million, and let's not forget that in 2007, the game was also released on Xbox 360, where the songs were sold on Xbox Live. According to VG Chats, the game had sold a total amount of 5 million copies. It has 92 press score and 84 player score on Metacritic. Soon after Guitar Hero 2, in July 2007, the PlayStation 2 version received an expansion named Rocks the 80s, which offered 30 songs from the 80s. The press gave the expansion a rather low score, saying that $50 for 30 songs is a bit too much, and as for the sales data, I didn't find any. What's interesting about the expansion is that in November 2007, a band called The Romantics sued Activision because their cover for the band's song What I Like About You sounded too close to the original, causing players to think that the collective was promoting the game. The musicians wanted to fine Activision, get monetary compensation, and even prohibit the sales of the expansion. The court predictably and rightly rejected the band's demands, because the publisher did not violate any copyrights. In between the releases of the second Guitar Hero and the 80s Hits expansion, Red Octane started looking for new developers for future games in the series. Eventually, publishers hooked up with the guys from Neversoft, who were busy with the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. There's a number of reasons to why they choose Neversoft. The first and the main one was that by the time Red Octane set their sights on Activision's inner studios, the guys from Neversoft already came up with a prototype of a new Guitar Hero. The second one was that Red Octane thought that if the developers have been making games in such a niche genre as skateboarding for 10 years and never failed to hit the sales charts, then they certainly could handle a niche music game as well. The third one, the guys from Neversoft also loved rock music and its derivatives, which why the soundtrack of each Tony Hawk was expressive and cool. The fourth one was that the Huang brothers, founders of Red Octane, met the head of Neversoft, Joel Jewett, at E3 2006. Then, Jewett told his future colleagues that Guitar Hero saved the team during the development of Tony Hawk's Project 8. According to the Huangs, Jewett was a highly eccentric man. He had a loaded shotgun lying on his desk in his office, or an unloaded one, but it was still a shotgun. Neversoft got to work immediately. The team had several experienced musicians, one wrote MIDI transcriptions, another produced the bands, the fifth one made music himself, and the 10th one had been playing in bands for years. These guys really had a chance. The first thing the new developers of the new Guitar Hero did was reducing the speed of hitboxes in order to simplify such techniques as hammer-ons and pull-offs. Hammer-on and pull-off are real guitar techniques that allow you to go from a lower note to a higher note and vice versa through string transitions. There are no strings on the Guitar Hero controller, so hammer-ons and pull-offs work easier. They allow you to play complex chords, which consists of several notes without the key string. Neversoft reduced the speed of hitboxes because Guitar Hero 3 had a large number of complex chords. Then, the developers spruced up the lighting system of the new Guitar Hero, so that every concert in the game looked as natural as if it was run by a real lightman. To this end, the trilogy's audio designer John Knudsen watched hundreds of different concerts on YouTube and paid special attention to Metallica's live performance of the song One, so that its performance in the game would look similar to the original. Finally, Neversoft even came up with some kind of a story for Guitar Hero 3 and made cutscenes for it. The story begins with the protagonists giving a concert on an improvised stage. After the show, the band is tailed by a manager of some big producer who offers the guys to play in a cool club. After that, the guys are introduced to the mighty producer himself, promises them money and girls, and makes them a video that boosts their popularity. After that, the musicians give a concert for convicts, when the producer orders them to head to Japan. But eventually, the guys get tired of the bossy producer and want to terminate the contract. The producer turns out to be the devil himself, and the rockers end up in hell, where they must defeat their boss in a guitar duel to return to the mortal world. Guitar Duel is an important gameplay novelty by Neversoft. There are 3 duels in the game. Each one corresponds with a certain stage of the band's progress. The first one is with the greatest guitarist Tom Morello, the second one is with the equally outstanding Slash, and the third one is with Satan himself. Here's how the duels work. Instead of scoring points, the player has to maintain his rock scale and damage the scale of his adversary. Long combos give you modifiers that affect the scale and inflict different effects. One makes the opponent's chords harder, another increases the difficulty level of the game, and so on. The catch is that the song does not play forever, and if the player doesn't win or lose until the song ends, the sudden death mode is activated. All modifiers turn into spoilage, which starts eating the scale. Whoever lasts longer. Duels are multiplayer entertainment, which is why the player is taught the rules in the single-player campaign, and which is why there are none of them in the cooperative campaign. The co-op mode is made for 2 players, who can choose from a solo, a bass, and a rhythm guitar. The story in co-op mode slightly differs from the single-player campaign, and the scenes go in a different order, but overall, it's pretty much the same. A vocalist and a drummer are looking for a guitarist and a bassist. After the first concert, the drummer captures the band's performance on video, the band becomes popular, and throws a bombastic concert in Japan. The drummer wants to make music, the vocalist wants to make money, so the rockers take a break. 3 months later, the guys give a concert to celebrate their comeback and accidentally burn down an entire neighborhood. They are put in prison, where a cunning but shady turnkey offers the lads freedom in exchange for a concert. He turns out to be a fiend, and the rockers end up in hell. You know the rest. Visually, Guitar Hero 3 had remained true to its roots. The concert stages and the characters are still cartoonish and a bit crooked. But the most important bit is the soundtrack. Guitar Hero 3 offers 73 songs, 42 of which are played in the single-player campaign, 6 in cooperative mode, and the remaining 25 are bonus songs. Of the 73 songs, Activision has licensed 54, including songs by Sex Pistols, Pearl Jam, Muse, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Slayer, Aerosmith, Disturbed, Guns N' Roses, and so on. This also includes dueling tracks recorded by Tom Morello, Slash, and guitarist Steve Wimmer, Ed DeGennaro, and Jeff Dyson. Like its predecessor, Guitar Hero 3 supported downloadable tracks for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Activision also wanted to make a DLC for the Wii version, but the console didn't have enough memory, so the publisher decided to release a game disc with updated tracks. Activision later solved the problem of online add-ons for the Wii in the future Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero 3 was released in October 2007 and started selling like hotcakes. A week after the release, Activision sold 1.5 million copies and earned $100 million. The following month brought another 2 million copies. By July 2008, in slightly over 6 months after its release, the game's circulation reached 8 million copies. 1 year after release, the game has earned $750 million, and by January 2009, the revenue exceeded $1 billion, making Guitar Hero 3 the first game in history to make so much money single-handedly. Neversoft has done a fantastic job, but all the revenue can be accredited to Activision and its active leader Bobby Kotick, who won't support a game unless it becomes a $100 million worth franchise and stays profitable for at least 10 years. The developers of the original Guitar Hero had different opinions on Neversoft's approach. Producer Lennon Lang found Guitar Hero 3 soulless because Neversoft simply rewrote the code and filled the game not with cool songs that are interesting to play, but with compositions that sold well above all else. Art director Ryan Lesser didn't get any kick out of Guitar Hero 3 because Neversoft had developed the third part without any experience with musical games. Project manager Greg Lopiccolo didn't appreciate the reworked characters of the threequel, as well as the ads Activision shoved into the game. In Guitar Hero 3, you can buy a guitar from Axe, and one of the concert stages is a Pontiac truck. The player also gets paid by different music companies for completing each piece of the story. This is also advertising, but it doesn't seem alien, because where else to advertise Zinger drum cymbals? However, some old-timers liked the game. Harmonix founder Alex Rigopoulos admitted that Neversoft made a decent Guitar Hero if only because so many people purchased it. Harmonix co-founder Aaron Agassi said that the new Guitar Hero was more modern and youthful, much like Tony Hawk. Leading game designer Chris Larkin commended Neversoft for making the game in less than a year. 1 month after Guitar Hero 3, in November 2007, the founding fathers of the original Guitar Hero released their new music game, Rock Band, for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Unlike in Guitar Hero, here you can play the guitar, smash the drums, and sing into the microphone. The development of the game cost MTV Games $200 million and took about 20 months. Harmonix nurtured the idea after the release of the original Guitar Hero in late 2005. At the same time, the developers made a prototype of the drum set, and since February 2006, industrial designer Jonathan Hayes also got involved, proposing to take the design of Fender Stratocaster electric guitar as the basis for the guitar controller and finalize the drum's looks. The drum controls were similar to those of the guitar. You bang the cymbals in sync with the notes that appear on screen. Apart from cymbals, the drums also have a pedal. In order not to assign it to the fifth note, Harmonix proposed to bind the pedal with a strip that runs through the entire playing field and cut the note tracker to just 4 lines. The drum in Rock Band gives the player the feeling of playing a real instrument, no less real than a guitar. The main feature of the game is the cooperative mode Band World Tour, where 2 to 4 players create a band and go on a world tour. First, the players give concerts in small clubs in the first chosen city. Later, they travel to give concerts in other cities and fly to other countries. The better the band plays, the more stars and fans it has and the more concerts it gets. Band World Tour is a cool and solid mode that would be even cooler if it worked online. Rock Band offers 58 songs, of which 51 are licensed. The 58 tracks include 45 songs from the main campaign and 13 bonus songs from the developers themselves, just like in the very first Guitar Hero. Thanks to Viacom, the developers got licenses from such artists as Soundgarden, Radiohead, Fall Out Boy, The Rolling Stones, The Police, The Killers, and many other living legends. However, Metallica, Black Sabbath, and Iron Maiden still didn't give the licenses for their tracks. Also, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 users could buy new songs from the PlayStation Store and Xbox Live, one at a time or simply entire albums. At launch, the stores offered 15 songs. By 2011, there was a total of 2,700. Rock Band became a music library for more than 900 musicians, and users downloaded songs 100 million times. Even though Harmonix Rock Band could be called the ultimate Guitar Hero, the developers weren't sure of the game's success because of how expensive it was. In July 2007, IGN, citing retailer GameStop, wrote that the drums would cost $80, that the wireless guitar for the PlayStation 3 would cost $60, and the wired one for the Xbox 360 would cost $20 more, and that the game disc without the guitar and the drums would cost $60 for both versions of the game. In September 2007, Harmonix told GameStop that the complete bundle of the game, including the disc, the drums, the guitar, and the microphone, would cost $170. Now, at first glance, that doesn't seem like a particularly high price for all those instruments, but not every player needs all those instruments.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it.
The publisher solved this problem in early 2008. The stores were now offering individual drums and guitars. 1 month after the release on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in December 2007, Rock Band came out on the PlayStation 2, and in summer 2008, it was released on Wii. According to Reuters, 1 year after its release, by October 2008, the game had sold 4 million copies and earned $600 million. The game has 92 points from journalists and 80 player score on Metacritic. Although Harmonix and Red Octane were now on opposite sides of the barricades, there was no bad blood between them, just healthy, friendly competition. The old sports regularly discussed their old and new games and shared ideas with each other. Apart from the original Guitar Hero, the teams were united by jealousy of Activision, which was making money from the franchise and, according to the old-timers, was killing Guitar Hero because, quote, they've turned it into a cash cow, similar to Call of Duty. Another quick flashback, if you will, to the years 2007 to 2008. When Guitar Hero 3 and Rock Band came out. Despite the incredible commercial success of Guitar Hero 3, the franchise was dying. Activision was releasing too many Guitar Heroes, MTV Networks was releasing too many rock bands. People were getting tired of the music boom. Harmonix and Red Octane, the founding fathers of the original series, foresaw the obvious outcome of both games as well as Activision. But it was impossible to stop the Guitar Hero locomotive. It was going way too fast. All that was left was to wait. From 2006 to 2010, Activision released 5 games of the series: Guitar Hero 2, Guitar Hero 3, Guitar Hero World Tour, Guitar Hero 5, and Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock. There were also 3 large expansions for bands like Aerosmith, Metallica, and Van Halen, plus 3 compilation expansions: Guitar Hero Encore, Rocks the 80s, Guitar Hero Smash Hits, and Band Hero. Each numbered part after Guitar Hero 3 sold worse than the previous one, as did the expansions and DLCs. From 2007 to 2010, Harmonix made 3 installments of Rock Band, 2 major editions, Green Day Rock Band and The Beatles Rock Band, and a spin-off called Lego Rock Band. As with Guitar Hero, each new game had less sales than the previous one in the line. By 2010, music games had outlived their popularity. In February 2010, Activision shut Red Octane down. The developers of the original Guitar Hero have different recollections of these events. Harmonix artist Matt Moore says that in 2005, the development team used to have family dinners every week in the office kitchen, but over time, there were so many people that the devs had to rent a separate room across the street, and the cozy dinners turned into lunches with enormous queues. Some employees didn't even know each other. Alex Rigopoulos, the founder of the studio, believes that people grew tired of music games because, unlike sports games, there is no tactical space and no element of surprise, because players always press the same sequence of buttons. The only difference is that some of them play better and some of them play worse. From the developer's point of view, Activision was sucking the blood out of Guitar Hero's young and vigorous body. From the publisher's point of view, the company was simply making money on a successful product. After all, you have to pay salaries, attract investors, and boast successful quarterly reports. 5 years later, Activision and Harmonix once again tried entering the field of music games. Rock Band 4 was released in October 2015 on PS4 and Xbox One. The game offers players a freestyle mode that Harmonix had in mind back in the times of the first Guitar Hero. Freestyle allows you to play wild solos when the usual notes on the screen are replaced by smooth lines. You can push any button to produce a cheerful tune. I guess we can skip the music and the gameplay because it really boils down to this: new songs, old gameplay. What really deserves attention is that after the release of Rock Band 4, the game received some truly warm reviews on its Amazon store page, which were posted by Harmonix employees themselves, as Reddit and Destructoid users promptly figured out. The studio's executives asked the developers to remove the reviews or indicate that they worked for the company. No matter how sincere their comments were, the studio did not approve of guerrilla marketing. The game's project manager, Matthew Nordhaus, edited the comment on Amazon and explained that he wrote it as a joke and that he would give the new Rock Band 5 stars even if he didn't work at Harmonix, because it's beautiful, interesting, and great to play with the wife and kids. Nice try, Matthew. According to NPD Group, Rock Band 4 ranked number 10 on the October 2015 list of best-selling games, while financial analysts estimated the game's revenue at $100 million by early 2016. But the sales were lower than the publisher had planned. According to data for the 2016 fiscal year, Mad Catz lost $11 million, which caused 40% of personnel to leave the studio, including important executives. In 2017, Harmonix released another game called Rock Band VR for the Oculus Rift virtual reality headset. It looks cool and plays cool, but I'll tell you about it when my beloved girlfriend buys me a headset. In its turn, Activision released Guitar Hero Live in 2015. The game was released on PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Wii, iOS, and tvOS. Unlike Rock Band 4, it turned out to be more innovative. The development of the game was entrusted to Freestyle Game Studio, which made two parts of DJ Hero.
Break it, break it, break it down and dance.
Activision gave the developers a free hand so that the new Guitar Hero would be different. The developers, having analyzed the previous parts, came to a conclusion that the sequel must be made immersive, so that it would be the player himself standing on the stage, not just the dummy. To this end, Freestyle Games equipped the new Guitar Hero with a first-person view like in Call of Duty, replaced the cartoonish characters with actors and sorted them into different groups by genre. The stout-bearded men were forced to play country tunes, the youthful girls were trusted with Paramore and Rihanna songs, and the lanky young men in ragged jeans had no choice but to go apeshit to hardcore. Guitar Hero Live has 10 bands and 40 songs. Previous parts of Guitar Hero only had one band. Each song in the game turns into an original mini concert. All the footage is dynamic, the picture changes depending on how the player is playing. If everything's great, the crowd will scream and unfurl "You rock" posters. While if the performance is bad, the audience will yell that the player sucks and almost start throwing tomatoes at him. Meanwhile, fellow musicians will also glance at the player and even try to show him how to play the instrument. To achieve such vividness of the event, each concert was filmed in several takes with a real crowd of 200 to 400 people. For greater effect, the developers added dimensional sound, thanks to which the volume of the instruments varies depending on how close or far from them the player is. You also can't move on your own in the game, as the camera moves with the actor. In addition to the visuals, the developers changed the controls of the new game. Instead of 5 buttons, they made 6 in 2 rows and cut the note tracker to just 3 lines. The top row was for black buttons, the bottom row was for white buttons. 2 buttons of the same row were responsible for the bar, which was completely new. Mechanically, Guitar Hero Live plays much cooler than the previous games, because your fingers move not only left and right, but up and down as well. But that's a matter of habit. What's more important is what's under the game's hood. Guitar Hero Live offers 42 basic songs of different genres, and not just different rock movements like in Guitar Hero 3, but different genres in general. The alternative emo punk, My Chemical Romance lives side by side with electronic dubstep house pieces by Skrillex, pop rock songs of Avril Lavigne are juxtaposed with calming folk tunes of Mumford & Sons, and British harmonies of garage indie Arctic Monkeys meet classic metalcore tunes of Piers the Veil. Guitar Hero Live has no backward compatibility with songs from previous games and past controllers because, according to Freestyle Games, it is firstly a brand new game, and secondly, this approach is more in line with today's single-use culture. For the same reason, the new Guitar Hero didn't get any updates with songs for offline modes. New music was added to the Guitar Hero TV online channel, where you could compete with other players and just watch clips that were being shown on the in-game TV. For those who wanted to play serious, Freestyle Games provided the GHTV Premium mode, where players would perform not just single tracks, but mini concerts that consist of several songs. The best players were given coins for which they could customize their guitars or play songs with no regard of the GHTV channel schedule. Players could also buy Party Pass, which gave access to all paid content for 24 hours. According to the developers, this mode was made for those who like to throw parties. When you have a crowd of guests, a six-pack, and everyone is going buck wild, you want to play your favorite songs, not just the ones from the main campaign, but the latter aren't bad either. At launch, GHTV offered 200 songs, and after that, the developers added about half a dozen tracks every week until August 2017. Over the next 8 months, the devs added only 1 track. And in June 2018, Activision announced that it would be closing the game's servers along with the GHTV mode. This happened in December 2018. The publisher shut down the servers because Guitar Hero Live was selling rather badly. According to VG charts, Activision sold only 220,000 copies of the game within the first week. On Metacritic, the game has 80 points from journalists and 62 player score. In addition to the fact that Activision pulled the plug on the game, the publisher also sold the freestyle game studio to Ubisoft, who affectionately sheltered the team and renamed them into Ubisoft Leamington. The team later participated in the development of Starlink, Battle for Atlas, and Division 2. So here's what we have so far. Guitar Hero and Rock Band couldn't make it back to the big market because no one wanted them, because people were now playing rhythm games on their phones, and because they were replaced by Clone Hero, a fan-made version of Guitar Hero that offers endless amount of songs and works with any old guitar. It doesn't have fancy graphics and first-person concerts, but it does have that contagious mechanical gameplay. In 2017, developer Ryan Foster wrote to streamer Jason Paradise asking him to try his fan game Clone Hero, which he had been working on since 2011. Jason Paradise is a former community manager at Rocksmith and a professional Guitar Hero player who quit his job to stream Guitar Hero all day long on Twitch and post funny videos on YouTube. He could appreciate Clone Hero more than anyone, plus he had and still has a strong and tight community of music game fans. Foster planned that Jason would just show Clone Hero to the public so that the game would get some attention and laughs, but Jason got sucked in instantly. In addition to the familiar interface and quick downloads, the game bribed with an infinite amount of songs. Jason has streamed Clone Hero countless times. Later, other famous Guitar Hero YouTubers started streaming the game, thanks to which many guitar enthusiasts learned about the game. In the first version of the game, were downloaded by 500 people at best. The builds of fall 2018 were downloaded by 50,000 users. Since Clone Hero doesn't have a default set of songs, they are added by players who make the notations themselves. The game has lots of rock songs, quite a lot of metal songs, but it isn't tied to the heavy genres. There is pop, there is rap, there are many different meme songs like this.
There's another fuser core. Not bad, not bad.
And this.
Oh my god! What the shit is this?
In addition to any Guitar Hero, the game also supports drums and pro drums with cymbals, lets you paint the fingerboard and the notes, it has a competitive mode, cooperative online mode, and 10 more bags of content. The game's community is growing by leaps and bounds. But what Ryan should worry about is the legal side of the whole thing. The game's interface pretty much copies Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and players share songs on Google Drive. Unironically, it would be a damn shame if sharks of the video game business and spoilsport musicians drown Clone Hero in legal claims and lawsuits. Although they still haven't done it, probably because they're busy playing Clone Hero themselves. After all, it's an awesome game indeed. All it takes is to calibrate your guitar and figure out how to add songs. The game even works with Guitar Hero Live Controller. I stress this because most streamers play it using old guitars. If you want to join in and you also have a Guitar Hero Live guitar, no worries. Despite Guitar Hero's and Rock Band's better days are long gone, they've had an enormous impact on games, people, and culture in general. There's a reason to why Wikipedia has a huge article dedicated to them. To illustrate, Guitar Hero and Rock Band were so popular that some bars in the US and Canada held themed night parties with games instead of karaoke. A 2008 survey by the national charity organization Youth Music found that 2.5 million of Britain's 12 million children started learning to play musical instruments after trying Guitar Hero. In 2008, Activision teamed up with the United Service Organizations to support the US military not only financially but also with free copies of Guitar Hero 3 so soldiers could take their minds off the military preoccupations. Guitar Hero has also shown itself in healthcare. The game proved to be good for the development of children and recovery from various injuries, as it involves fine motor skills. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University in the US used Guitar Hero 3 to help amputee patients train their nerve endings and ultimately develop new arm prostheses for them. Plus, Guitar Hero spawned many musical clones. In 2008, Konami released Rock Revolution, which has a guitar and drums. At the same time, XS Games rolled out Popstar Guitar for Kids, which copies the gameplay of Guitar Hero but offers to play pop instead of heavy metal. The top 3 close of 2008 is concluded by Guitar Praise from Digital Praise Studios, in which players would go wild to Christian rock. Then, there also were We Rock Drum King, with drums and Battle of the Bands, and Ultimate Band with guitars. Apart from endless unknown Wii developers, Guitar Hero has also inspired Tim Schafer. In an interview with Xbox Magazine, he told that if Guitar Hero hadn't become so popular, Brutal Legend might not have been released because initial reviews of the game were mixed, and suggested that the developers remade the game so that it'd be about hip-hop and country. Brutal Legend came out because Harmonix and Red Octane, quote, revived metal. Guitar Hero also appealed to director Brett Ratner, who directed Rush Hour, X-Men: The Last Stand, the 5th episode of New York I Love You, and the great comedy Movie 43. Ratner even planned to make a screen adaptation of Guitar Hero, but Activision did not approve the idea. Finally, Guitar Hero has enormously promoted music distribution. In a 2008 interview with Shack News, Universal Music President Zach Horowitz said that the sales of songs that are in the game have increased by 200 to 300%. According to a Brown University survey, 76% of Guitar Hero players purchased the music they heard in the game. Thanks to Guitar Hero, the song Through the Fire and Flames by Dragon Force has gained nationwide love. Despite being a bonus song for Guitar Hero 3, which, on top of everything else, is considered one of the most difficult in the series, its sales increased by 126% in the first week after the release of the game. First, the song was downloaded 2,000 times a week, then 10,000 times, and by the end of 2007, 2 months after the game's release, the number of downloads of the song reached 40,000 per week. Famous bands also noticed the impact of Guitar Hero. For example, the Guitar Hero Aerosmith add-on boosted sales of all of the band's songs by 40%. Bobby Kotick proudly declared that the game brought the musicians more money than any of their albums. Unfortunately, the band's representative did not respond to the brave statement of the company's CEO. Most likely, Kotick casted in the information to get the attention of Metallica, and Expansion with their name came out 2 years after Aerosmith's Expansion. These are just a few examples of how Guitar Hero has influenced music, games, and people. We could make a separate video about it, but chances are that after this video, you'll want to forget about Guitar Hero forever, otherwise you'll suffer an overdose. Guitar Hero is a monumental series that might not have existed if a group of geeky fans didn't find help of a similar group of inept rookie businessmen. Perseverance and hard work got them through all the problems and hardships, and both teams got experience, made money, learned to play big, and spent many years making their dream game. Guitar Hero is awesome. Be sure to try it, buy it, and play it if you haven't already. You'll get an experience that no today's glossy exclusive would give you. And in the company of friends, Guitar Hero becomes the best game in the whole wide world. Like Mortal Kombat or cards, a must-have for sure. Thank you so much for watching. Write down in the comments which game in the series is your favorite. Share your playlists and links to Clone Hero songs. And as always, subscribe to our channel and smash the bell button for more content. Stay tuned.